Okay, welcome back into Newsmax here in our special coverage of the inauguration of Donald J. Trump. We have some new guests sitting next to us right now. The host of Frontline right here on Newsmax, Carl Higbee.
They let me out early.
They let him out early. John Gizzi, too. John, good to see you today.
Always a pleasure.
All right, Carl. Let's start with you. I know there is plenty you want to dissect right now. A lot to get into. Let's just start generally, how you're feeling and what you thought of his speech.
All of them. Fantastic. Look, this is the day of spiking the football. I know it's like, President Trump took a very somber tone during his speech earlier today, during his inaugural address, but it was a policy speech as much as anything else. The interesting thing was, as calm as his tone was, it was like, you guys screwed this up. I'm back. I'm going to fix it. I'm done with this. Let's get to work.
He was hammering them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they had their nice goodbye at the helicopter, and I was like, I'm not sure what was said right with that. I forgot.
Interesting how that all played out. John, I know that you've covered many inaugurations, and you are such an impressive historian. What is standing out to you today that is unlike any other inauguration you've seen?
Well, just as a postscript to what Carl said, this was more a State of the Union address than a traditional inaugural address. But as he made clear, he means business right away. And that's why he spelled out exactly what his agenda would be. And remember, the president wants to do this in a period of months. Much like FDR in 1933 with the first 100 days. He essentially spelled out policy because he's going to do this in a set period of time.
Carl, let's get to some of the meat of the day here. The pardons for the Biden family, his two brothers, their wife, another, and then for the J6 committee. I know you're chomping at the bit to get to this.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the thing. Joe Biden, back 3.5 years ago, said that he wouldn't be pardoning his family on the way out the door. He did it. He did exactly what he said he wasn't going to do. And you don't pardon people unless you know they did something wrong. Like this, he can hide behind the fact, oh, this is all about, protecting them from Donald Trump's wrath.
Hypothetically weaponizing what they did, they would say that Trump would be doing that to them,
right.
Like turning the tables.
Yeah, and look, if this is going to be the precedent, you're going to have to pardon your family and your friends. Look, we know that there was money exchanged between all sorts of family members for loan repayments, but there's no origination of the loan. We know that there were a mountain of LLCs, that all kinds of money changed hands from some from China, some from Ukraine, some from all over the world. Okay, like Bob, you and I we're normal people. We don't do that stuff. All right, there is a paper trail of money coming in with no product to it. There is something there, and he knew that they were going to find it out. And he went on ahead and preemptively pardoned them, and I think they should challenge the power of a preemptive pardon.
Yeah, interesting. John, I mean, do you think that this preemptive pardon will protect the families of Joe Biden?
Yes, I do. With all respect to my friend Carl, this is going to be forgotten in a short time, except at Republican rallies. People will condemn him editorially. We'll hear a lot on talk radio about it, but what is done is done. In addition, while we're making the list of preemptive pardons, giving a pardon to General Milley and to Dr. Fauci seemed a little unusual. A lot of people condemn them, but taking criminal action later is something that's rarely, if ever, has been mentioned.
Keep in mind, though, Fauci right now is under state investigation in Florida under Ron DeSantis, and this pardon doesn't protect him from that. So that's a big he could still face the music down in Florida, which I'm here for.
Federal versus state.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So is there a legal avenue, Carl, to where they can go with this to challenge? Because he's pardoning a hypothetical crime that no one has investigated.
Without defining it.
You're right.
Well, I don't know, Bob. I dropped out of college, so I'm not a lawyer.
We're getting into some high-level legal stuff.
Exactly. I think it should be, look, when Nixon was pardoned, the Supreme Court weighed in at some point and said, hey, it's not challenged. We don't know. Until somebody challenges, we don't know. So this is going to test it. Do you go ahead, start the investigation? Because, look, they don't have Fifth Amendment freedoms. They can't self-incriminate anymore because they've been pardoned. So this could go all the way up to, the big guy who didn't pardon himself. And there's no loss of precedent to prosecute a former president, as we know now. So it's going to be interesting. If you charge these people anyway, the courts are going to have to define, can you pardon somebody for a crime that hasn't been charged yet.
Yeah, very, very interesting. John, do you think this type of pardoning one's family is something that now a precedent has been set, and this is simply how American politics will be when there's a transition of power?
Not so certain about that, because there will almost inevitably be legal changes, and I predict they'll come from the legal eagles in private foundations, for example, legal centers. And I could even name some of the people, but I don't want to embarrass them on this. But I expect legal action on it, and if successful, it will deter future presidents from using the pardon for personal advantage. Well, yeah.
Oh, no, not to, to disagree with you too much here, but you had said people are going to forget about this stuff. And I'm thinking like 49% of the people in this building right behind us would really like to forget about that. But I think it's on the onerous of the new Republican, the new MAGA party, to keep this in the front light and make sure, because if we don't do something, it's all going to happen again.
If you don't, I've had many people talk to me about this. If you don't do anything, they say, well, then how can we possibly move forward as a country? If that was allowed to happen, there was this political warfare, lawfare going on, and then, okay, Trump won, and now you just sweep it under the rug. That's not sitting right with a lot of people. So, I tend to agree maybe that people aren't going to forget about this.
Right. Yeah. Or is it just time to stop this lawfare overall, once and for all, and just move forward how we've been? I don't know.
I don't know if you can.
Well, we will see what happens if individual lawyers and foundations take this up as a case and then see how far it goes. This will be determined pretty soon whether it lives on or not. Yeah. I have a tendency to say that people will focus on things such as the president's agenda more than the pardons of the lame duck president.
Which is what we're going to do. The agenda of President Trump, more than 200 executive orders, actions set to be taken today. We're going to talk about that next. First, our national correspondent Mike Carter live at Capital One Arena at the celebratory rally going on right now. Mike.
USA! Hey guys, good evening. Well, we have a USA chant going. Look, it's been a wild contest here at the Capital One Arena. As you've been watching along on Newsmax, the proceedings since early this morning, so has this crowd of about 20,000 people inside this arena. Remember, this is with the crowd, a much larger crowd they were expecting out on the National Mall. Due to the weather, however, that has been pushed indoors. So we have a number of speakers up right now. We are expecting President Trump here within the hour. He is on his way here at some point in the hour. We're expecting him to be here, and we're expecting him to speak. We're also expecting him to possibly sign some executive orders. Take a look at stage left there. There is a table with a seat, and it has that presidential seal. Could we see President Trump sitting at that table, signing some executive orders, maybe pardoning some J6ers? That would get a round of applause in this arena. I can tell you that. Yesterday at the Trump rally at this very same venue, Donald Trump said when he was sworn in today, it wouldn't just be him swearing in, it would be all of us swearing in. This is very much a community type experience. This environment, the people who are here in this building, many of them have been at dozens of Trump rallies over the last 2 years, and this is going to be a raucous occasion. Now President Trump, no longer running for office, comes in front of a crowd of this size, and now is the President of the United States once again. We just heard from Elon Musk a few minutes ago talking about Doge going to Mars. You had that heard that echoed by President Trump earlier today. Elon Musk saying it is one of his most favorite values in America is optimism, and that is something that has certainly defined the MAGA movement. And when we look about a couple more minutes before President Trump gets here, there's going to be a lot of optimism in this building as well. Send it back to you guys.
All right, Mike Carter, thank you so much. And something else we want to point out, I don't know how much you can see over our shoulder. Of course, you see the Capitol Dome, but if you can focus on the flags, that's what I'm doing right now. But you will notice they are all at full staff. Now, if you may remember, they were potentially going to be at half staff because of the passing of former President Jimmy Carter. But Speaker Mike Johnson said, nope. We're going to raise those flags and celebrate this Inauguration Day. So something very important to point out and something very, very symbolic as well.
Take them up. It's a day of celebration, as you can see with the Washington Monument next door. Let's talk about some of those executive actions orders President Trump is set to take. We just heard from Mike Carter. There was a desk at Capital One Arena. Maybe, who knows exactly what we have in store, maybe signing of some of those. We already heard him say during his speech, national border emergency. He's going to declare there that two-day. Carl, what does that exactly mean? What does that look like? Give us the ability
Well,
to do.
there's actually a bunch of stuff here. So you have the National Emergency Declaration, you have the proclamation to close the border, you have the designation of drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. But I mean, all these things, he's got half a dozen and more coming up. All these give him expanded power. We've seen reports all over social media of Border Patrol vehicles on flatbeds by the dozen going down to the southern border.
Sounds like they're getting ready.
I mean, it is go time. It is lock this stuff down. One of the ports of entry has already been closed down, I believe, outside of El Paso. I mean, this is a big deal. It is going to be like an overnight change.
Something else interesting, John, President Trump saying officially as of now in America, there are only two genders, male and female. It may sound silly, but you know what it is? It's science.
Well, he is exactly going to put it in writing and have it put down in legalese for people.
Yeah.
And I think the executive order will satisfy that. The other thing to look at, sooner or later, more likely sooner, he will get deregulatory executive orders in, essentially undoing a lot of the Biden regulations. He said as much as in his inaugural address.
All right. Well, we're going to now go to a guest who is joining us live from Capitol Hill, Tennessee, Senator Bill Hagerty. Senator, thanks so much for joining us on Inauguration Day here in the nation's capital. It looks like, at least where you are inside, you are warm, but tell us a little bit about your experience on this Inauguration Day.
Well, it's been absolutely uplifting. If you think about the collective sigh of relief that we're feeling all over the nation, this 4-year experiment in Marxism is over. And President Trump came in and basically laid out the facts that it's time to get back to the exceptionalism that this nation is and can become again. He's going to do everything in his power to make that happen as quickly as he possibly can. I'll tell you this, later this afternoon at 4:30, I'm on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. We're going to meet as a group, and we're going to vote Marco Rubio out of that committee to be our next Secretary of State. We're going to put it to the Democrats to join us to accelerate Marco's process here and make certain that we confirm him, I hope, tonight to be our next Secretary of State. Same for John Ratcliffe to be our CIA director. We have national security concerns that are enormous, thanks to the failures of the previous administration. We need to be ready to hit the ground running. We need to deliver the team that President Trump needs to win. And so we're going to have the first real test of the Democrats. I hope they saw what happened in the November 5th election, because 75% of Americans said that we were on the wrong track. President Trump won every single battleground state. He won the popular vote. He had a landslide in the Electoral College. I hope that message has been carried loud and clear to my Democrat colleagues, because we need to get moving as a nation again. And President Trump laid out the steps to do that today. I'm very excited about it.
Senator, let me ask you about this. President Trump's speech inside the Capitol building. Some people saying that, it went a little long. It turned into almost like a campaign speech or rally speech. I had a lot of people texting me that said that made them so excited, optimistic. After the 4 years we just experienced, that was the kind of message they wanted to hear. I think it was pretty spot on for what he should have done. What say you?
I certainly think so, too. And look, I was here at his first inaugural address in January of 2017. I think the mainstream media had already written the critique before he even gave the speech. He actually called out what had happened in America during the Obama administration. Today, he let America know again the wrath that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris wrought on America. But he's going to bring us back. It's already started, even before he's taken office. You've seen peace breaking out in the Middle East. You see the ceasefire that's taken place in Gaza, thanks to Steve Witkoff being sent over there on behalf of President Trump to deliver the message that this needs to get fixed. You see the EU now saying that they're going to start buying U.S. LNG and displace Russian LNG. This all happened before President Trump has taken office, and you've also seen the projections for the 2025 GDP in America significantly revised upward last week, because American CEOs, even foreign companies, are investing here in America, making those commitments, and it's easy and obvious to see that our economy is going to take off under President Trump.
Senator, you said that you were at Donald Trump's first inauguration. Do you feel that this is a very different Donald Trump, a very different President Trump this time?
And the environment is different as well. He's the same Donald Trump that I've known for years, but he's had the benefit of 4 years in office, He's had the benefit, and so is the American public, of seeing the failure of the Marxist policies of Joe Biden and the far-left Democrats. And he's coming back strong because he knows he's got 4 years to get this done. The damage that has been done these past 4 years under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has been enormous. He's got to fix it. He's focused on fixing it, so he's moving at a rapid pace. The other thing I'll say is this. The opposition on the Democrat side has totally collapsed. If I think about what we faced, I was a finance chair for President Trump in 2016. I moved into Trump Tower the day after the election. They were so organized, they were there blockading us. They were shouting and spitting at us, "Not my president." Very well organized. I think they were probably paid. But that resistance movement is broken. The Democrat Party is in a shambles. They should be. 3/4 of America has said that the policies that they advocated are all wrong. And so we're moving in now without that level of resistance. As I said, tonight we have a chance to see what my Democrat colleagues in the Senate will do, and if they'll allow us to seat Marco Rubio and Ratcliffe in as our CIA director and our Secretary of State, we're going to have a great start.
All right, Senator Hagerty, we appreciate your commentary and you're joining us again, and hope you're going to some fantastic inauguration balls tonight. And you are watching a special coverage of the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump. We will be right back here on Newsmax.
This is good.
All right, welcome back to special live coverage of the inauguration of Donald J. Trump. You're looking at a large group of supporters there celebrating outside Capital One Arena. That is a live shot. We know that it's a packed house on the inside. Maybe some people still hoping they can get in, or at least enjoying the energy that is obvious on the outside, even though it is such a cold day. And Bob, you and I prepared so much to get bundled up, and I will tell you it is cold, but there's something about the excitement that just kind of keeps you warm inside.
It's the energy, and we, the people, the supporters, they obviously didn't get the speech outside the Capitol and the big pomp and circumstance that we normally would have. So this is the next best thing. Obviously outside Capital One Arena, so a lot of energy there. Everyone
That's
excited.
right.
They want to get their money's worth when you come to D.C. for an inauguration for President Trump. We're going to check in now with our correspondent, Chuck Holton, live on the streets of D.C., where we think security is probably pretty tight right now. Chuck, what's going on?
That's right, Bob and Katrina. The senator that you just had on was exactly right. I was out here 8 years ago on Inauguration Day, and it was a totally different feel. The reason for that is because, as he said, there were paid, organized protests against Donald Trump back then, and they've just been nowhere to be seen today. It's been a completely different inauguration, totally different vibe here on the street, and unprecedented security, as you can see here behind me. They've had tens of thousands of police officers on the street, about 8,000 National Guard troops from Virginia and Pennsylvania also on the street. One interesting change, though, is that these National Guard troops were completely unarmed this time. The last time they were armed, but they didn't have any ammunition. So I don't know what that means. But what you see outside the Capital One Center is there are tens of thousands of people who are unable to get in and just wanted to be there. So now those people are going through security checkpoints to get down to Pennsylvania Avenue in hopes of just seeing a glimpse of the president's motorcade as he goes past. They were very excited today. Huge cheers went up as he left the St. John's Episcopal Church after the prayer service this morning, and they saw him go by waving at the crowd, and they were just very, very excited about that. But you can see here, they've got the streets all blocked off for many blocks around the White House. They say more than 30 miles of fences, all of these police. And some people might say it was all for naught because the expected protests and even riots that they had the last time Trump was inaugurated did not materialize. But some might say it's specifically because of things like this that they didn't materialize. We'll let you decide. Back to you.
All right, Chuck Holton, thank you so much. We really appreciate that report. And stay warm. Get some hot chocolate.
Yeah, I noticed. No protesters this time
I
around.
know, isn't
Goodbye.
it?
Bye-bye to those people. All right, you're watching special coverage of the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump, the 47th president of the United States. We're going to be right back here on Newsmax after a brief moment. Stick with us.
Together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We're going to win like never before.
All right, the 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, speaking there earlier at the Capitol, and we are now coming back to our very special live coverage of the Inauguration Day of Donald J. Trump. And we are joined back here in the studio. But before we do that, I want to point out what you're looking at on your screen. It was the live coverage of the inauguration in that Capital One arena, and then also crowds gathering outside, hoping to catch a glimpse and at least share some of the infectious energy of this day. And back with us here on set, Carl Higbie is still with us, and we are joined by Jason Miller, who is a strategist for Donald Trump. But I know you are friends with the president, and you have been by his side throughout this entire process. Today, Jason, it has all come to fruition. How do you feel? What was most memorable?
The electricity in the room was something else. I mean, when people started chanting USA, USA in the rotunda, it was just such a good feeling. But the thing that I loved more than anything was that the president came in hot with his to-do list. This is exactly what we're going to do. Typically with these inaugurations, the presidents will get up there and they'll say, we're going to go and do this lofty objective, we're going to do this thing. And none of it ever happens for most people. President Trump, though, for only the second time in our nation's history, we have a president who's returning to the White House. He knows exactly what he wants to do, how he's going to secure the border. He laid out specifics, such as remain in Mexico or getting rid of catch and release, ending that nonsense app that the Border Patrol has, where you just basically if you're illegal, just have the app and cruise right in. A total joke. But also talked about increasing the energy exploration. Of course, even before the president was sworn in, we had a peace deal in the Middle East. This was the plan of action. And a thing I really, really liked was when he first started, he took on Washington, he took on the failed establishment with all of those other failed establishment politicians from the past 2 decades sitting within 10 feet of him. He made sure to point out to them all the damage they'd done in this country and how he was going to fix it.
Jason, one of the first things the president said during his speech, with Joe Biden sitting obviously right next to him, safety restored and get rid of the vicious and violent weaponization of our DOJ. That will end. That's a big part of, I think, what's to come over the next several months. Talk about that. Yeah, I mean, he's really going to rip out the politicization out of all of these departments. We're going to see it at the DOJ. We're going to see it at every other agency, especially, say, with DOD, with Pete Hegseth. That's not the place where we're supposed to go for politics. They're either, say with DOD, you're supposed to be protecting the country, protect Americans. DOJ, you want to get the scales of Lady Liberty back to an equilibrium here and not being stacked and people coming in and playing games. And it was almost, though, if you saw Biden and the rest of the folks there, they couldn't even comprehend. Although for Biden, it's a day ending in Y, so he probably couldn't understand it anyways. But President Trump said he's going to go and get it back to what the people want. And here's the thing, keep in mind, when these policies, and I know some of the mainstream media, their heads may have been exploding, 87% of people support his plan to deport criminal illegals. 2/3 of Americans support all of his immigration plans, including a majority of Latinos and Hispanics. People want to see action. They want to see it done. So many people have given up the thought that their personal economic future is ever going to improve, but today, everybody has hope again.
Well, it's reassuring that at least 2/3 of America gets it. But, they're starting some of the votes for confirmation. Pete Hegseth, I believe, tonight at 5 p.m. What's your take on those?
So we're going to have Pete Hegseth, and I think we're also going to have John Ratcliffe tonight. Things are going to start moving pretty quickly here. I think we'll get a couple more this week. And then with the hearings, back to that, we'll have Doug Collins for VA, also Elise Stefanik for the UN. I think later this week we'll have Howard Lutnick for Commerce and Brooke Rollins for Ag. Actually, I think Dan Driscoll, who's coming in as Secretary of the Army, had a chance to chat with him. He said his hearing is coming up on Thursday. And then next week we'll have some big ones with Kash Patel for FBI, Tulsi Gabbard for DNI, and also Bobby Kennedy for HHS. This cabinet, what we saw this past week, was nothing short of phenomenal. I tell you, Pete Hegseth rocked it. He was so impressive. Pam Bondi was great. Scott Bessent, Marco was great.
Everybody's done well.
Everybody's doing it, because here's the thing. The president picked some really great people. He had 4 years to do it before. He saw what worked and saw what didn't. The other thing, all of them are great communicators. We've never seen, heck, we better hope they stay there, otherwise they'll come and kick us off the shows and get back on the airwaves. But these folks, and they're razor sharp. These guys are good. I've had the opportunity to work with all of them for their confirmation hearings. They are so good, so sound in their knowledge of what they want to do and how to put in the president's agenda. I'm excited just looking at what obviously the president's doing with the EOs, what the cabinet's doing. And we haven't even gotten to the cool stuff we're going to do with the tax cuts and all the other stuff down the road.
Tax cuts, I like that. He definitely has A-listers in place, and of course we're all very excited to see how all of those nominations continue and where everything ends up. But let's get back to the day at hand. Of course, very special. We have Donald J. Trump being inaugurated for the second time, of course, non-consecutive terms. Talk about the man he is today, what he learned during the 4 years he was out of the White House, maybe what he learned to do in a different way, and what he'll do differently now that he's back.
So having the opportunity to be on all three of the president's campaigns, you can really say that 16 and 20 and 24 all completely different. Completely. But the other thing too, he's gotten so much better at this that he knows. So for one of the more remarkable things on this campaign trail, we're in Iowa, for example, and we're doing the different caucus events, and so would come up and he would remember just off the top of his head is, you know, your son went to this school, your daughter has this activity, and he would remember these things from 16. The way that he has worked it politically, the way that he's built the relationships on the Hill. This is why it's going to matter, because we have such a small majority in the House. Obviously, we have a little bit bigger majority at the moment in the Senate. You're going to need Republican unity to get all these things done. And this party really is reflective of him at this point.
Well, let's talk about the rest of the party, because there's a lot of Republicans in Senate and House that are holding out, still not on the Trump train. And I'm like, guys, like, how much more evidence do you need at this point?
You know, I have been heartened by the words I've heard from John Thune. I think Thune has been pretty good. Obviously, Johnson, there are some people on both the House and the Senate who aren't quite on board yet. We're getting there with them, but it's very clearly President Trump's party, and you see the way that folks have really galvanized around the nominees with Pete Hegseth and some of the others, that they're going to make sure the president gets his cabinet. I mean, we have to. We have to. I mean, we have to get these national security people in particular in place.
I think one last thing I want to talk about here is it's only 4 years, we know this, but down the line, you know, decades to come, 20 years to come, setting a foundation for what that they've put in. Trump said today the education system don't teach our kids to be ashamed of our country, who they are. He's talked a lot about just being a general cheerleader for the United States of America, you know, making us all feel, hey, great, like the old days. And that's a part of it in getting into the school systems. Can you talk a little bit about how that might happen?
Well, a lot of it's the bully pulpit. I mean, we've already seen it with small business optimism. We're already seeing it with CEO optimism. But also, too, the fact that people can be proud to be Americans again. That people don't have to be ashamed to do the Pledge of Allegiance or the Star-Spangled Banner. That we can. It's cool to be American again. It's okay to say that there are only two genders. Who would have thought
and
that was
starts at schools, teaching kids to do this.
Which I did love the studio cam or the pool cam cut to a friend of mine right when they said the two genders, and his phone immediately blew up, and he's like, he's like, now everyone thinks I'm the two gender guy. He's like, oh no. But I tell you, it was so cool to have a president do that at their inauguration. Everyone watching. I got to tell you that the excitement was there, but there was no one who's more excited for the American people than President Trump.
Wow. Jason Miller, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Jason, it's going to be fun.
Thanks, guys.
Enjoy the ride.
Okay, folks. Yeah, you're watching special coverage of the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump. As we've said, we're going to be right back after a quick break. Stick with us.
Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
All right, and we are back now with a live look at Capitol Hill, where the president and the first lady are still enjoying their luncheon. You can see Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha there as well. And again, a very, very long day for this team, but I'm sure they are just walking on air and so excited to get back to work. We're joined here at the desk by Tom Basile after he thawed out a little bit. He is back with us here. Tom, you've been monitoring every moment of this day. How do you feel?
I feel fantastic. And I think Americans really should feel fantastic as well for it, because you think about just what this means for the country to have this transfer of power to have this moment of hope and promise for the next 4 years, and we're seeing all of these wonderful traditions, these wonderful American traditions, like this congressional luncheon that is going on. This has been a tradition here for Inauguration Day since the late 19th century, and seeing the three branches of government together, I think, is really important. It's so incredibly symbolic about just the vision and the genius of our founding fathers and how they constructed this government that has really been a symbol to the entire world. And look, I think you've got a president there who understands expectations are high. The time for talk is over. The time for action is now. So, look, and he's just getting warmed up at the arena. He's going to be signing some of those executive orders. And I think that the folks there are going to go wild. So it's going to be very interesting to watch over this
absolutely.
next hour.
I know a lot of people are optimistic, especially after that speech he gave right after being sworn in. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring in Texas Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne live from Capitol Hill right now. The Congresswoman is joining us. Do we have her? Okay, there she is, Congresswoman. Good to see you. Now I want to ask you this. I know you were at the Newsmax party last night. Did you have fun?
Yes. Yes, I was just telling them. I said I thought it was one of the best parties that we've been to this whole week. Beautiful venue, great people, awesome food. It was very exciting.
All right, that wasn't my real question there.
He really wanted to ask you now, and I would have asked you the same thing.
We've been to a lot of parties this week celebrating, so.
Well, it's worth it. I mean,
Yes.
again, quite a celebration. Tom was just referencing those executive orders, some 201?
Something like that.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah.
And so we'd love to know your thoughts on them. I mean, I'm sure you've looked them over. What stands out to you? I can guess on a few considering you're from Texas.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, there's a couple of considerations. One, down from Texas, so obviously, the backbone that he is showing that is going to actually secure our borders, that is going to deport, millions, especially of criminal illegal aliens, was music to our ears. And I think, as you heard, the uproar of applause during that comments, it was music to the majority of our ears, not just the Texas contingency, but I'm on Ways and Means, so we're also looking at a tax package, and him so seriously taking what they're going to do with our economy, with inflation, with trade. These are amazing programs that he wants to reinvent in many cases, looking at what we're doing with Remain in Mexico, getting rid of the CBP app to really secure our borders, but also the trade that hasn't happened in the last 4 years. Those are all things that I'm really looking forward to.
Congresswoman, talk about the External Revenue Service. Trump had mentioned something like that today, collecting tariffs from other countries, reworking trade deals,
so far,
and how that might look.
We saw the last administration be very concentrated on the Internal Revenue Service and berating and are really beating down our small businesses. I think what you see is a complete flip of that from the new Trump administration. They are looking at making sure that countries that we do business with, that is equal, that we are actually getting a benefit out of. And he's talking about creating the External Revenue Service that would make sure that we are getting, our equal amounts of money, whether that's tariffs, taxes, from other countries. And so, look, I appreciate the focus being on Make America Great Again and not giving so much money to foreign nations.
Yeah, well, Congresswoman, I talked to you last night on the stage at the Newsmax party, and one of the things we didn't get to was the renewal of the Tax Cuts and Job Act, which is going to renew tax cuts for all Americans. Everyone would get a tax raise if this doesn't go back into effect. That's going to come with significant cuts in federal workforce as well. What do you guys have planned for that?
Yeah. Well, look, we will see if we do not extend the provisions from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Nearly 90% of all American taxpayers are going to have some of the highest increases in their taxes in our nation's history. We have to be able to prevent that. But we're also looking at small businesses that could potentially close if they don't get those extensions. So we are putting together a tax package. I know a lot of people think we're trying to do too much at one time, but the fact is we have been working on this tax package for over a year now. We have been started reaching out. We've had field hearings across the country. We've been reaching out to all of our conference members to make sure that we're getting their input, get their constituents' input. And so this is something that we're taking very seriously. But without those provisions being extended, you know, my fear is what would happen to the economy. A shrinking economy is not what we need right now. It would only be an increase in inflation, which we have to do everything to avoid.
No, the American people can't afford any more inflation after what we've had over the last 4 years. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, great to see you. Great to see you last night. Stop back on Newsmax soon.
Great to see you.
Okay, folks, you're watching the special coverage of the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump at the luncheon. Right now, his wife Melania, Vice President Vance, his wife next to him, Usha, just as well. Speaker Johnson at the podium. We're going to take a quick break.
Back to our very special live coverage of the inauguration of Donald J. Trump. And what is happening now? It's all about the Capital One Arena just down the street here from the Capitol.
America.
Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin at the podium now. You just heard him say, "God bless America," and that really seems to be a refrain, Mercy, that we're hearing again and again on this very special day. A lightness.
I got to tell you, I never saw so many prayers at an inaugural before.
I was thinking,
and then they had a prayer at the other. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of prayer. I mean, for a man who, you know, Donald Trump is not necessarily known as you know, the greatest prayer warrior. I mean, he had more pastors, more clergy at his inaugural saying prayers for himself and for the country. It's an amazing accomplishment.
And he basically said that it was God saved his
Yes.
life, and it is why
Saved by God.
Yes.
Saved
Change,
by
he's a
God.
change,
Great again.
That is,
changed
I think,
man.
one of
Yeah.
the most incredible
Yeah.
lines, and really just such a powerful moment.
It really summed it up.
I feel like I've noticed over the course of his journey over these years is his faith in God, not to just keep repeating that line, that he's become more religious, Mercedes.
I've
don't you
noticed
think?
that.
And then that's proof of what we saw happening
Right.
inside Capitol Hill.
Well, you know, God's made a comeback in America. You know, now people are more open to wearing their MAGA hats and also talking about God and being unafraid.
Yes.
Because I do think that there was this sense, and I think the Democrats really did do a lot to censor the religious rights in America. And so I think for the president, after that assassination attempt, when I saw him afterwards, he was a different man. He's
Changed his
definitely more reflective, understanding that he has a purpose right now in this country to save this country. Not only that, but save Western civilization. It is a very, very strong mandate.
He did, and just before we go to Kilmeny, I want to say also, Mercedes, he also said, "We will not forget our Constitution, and we will not forget our God." So again, multiple mentions in that speech today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do this. Congressional correspondent Kilmeny Dukart, she's live on Capitol Hill with the very latest. We are almost 3 hours into the Trump presidency.
Well, there you go. It's official.
Yeah, we are, and this is going to be a jam-packed day in the Senate. We know President Trump is having that congressional luncheon, again, accompanied by congressional leaders as well as many cabinet nominees, which we expect some of whom may be confirmed later today. But we know that Republicans will be very critical to enacting President Trump's legislative agenda that we heard him in great detail lay out in that inaugural address. We know that the signing of the executive action on the border, there's going to be an extension of that today with the passing in the Senate of the Laken Riley Act, named after the 22-year-old Georgia nursing student who was killed by an undocumented migrant. That is, of course, legislation that will require the detention of undocumented migrants that commit burglary or theft. But part of these objectives is going to be confirming Trump's national security nominees. We spoke with Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn a little bit earlier this morning. She told us that they certainly expect to have a vote tonight to confirm Senator Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, possibly CIA Director nominee John Ratcliffe, as well as Kristi Noem, the nominee for, of course, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary. But again, all of these very fast-moving parts. The Senate will be wasting no time delivering on President Trump's agenda here. We'll be keeping a close eye on that. There's been a lot of reaction coming to us on the Hill, of course, reacting to the pardons of not only members of the January 6th House Select Subcommittee, Dr. Anthony Fauci, but also members of President Biden's own family. We have a statement that we had received from House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. Reacting to that, he, of course, had been investigating the so-called Biden family's business schemes. He said President Biden's preemptive pardons for the Biden crime family serve as a confession of their corruption as they sold out the American people to enrich themselves. And just to put this in context for you, it was just a few days ago that House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer had called on the incoming Attorney General, who just had her confirmation hearing, Pam Bondi, to actually hold